Trent Williams is questionable. Do you think he'll play?
I don't know. Kyle was saying real questionable, which
Yeah.
the reason that Kyle says that is because he's practiced 2 days in a row. Usually, when players practice 2 days in a row going into the week, they're seen as probable, they're seen as likely to play. And unfortunately, in Trent Williams' case, it seems more like a game time 50-50 decision because you also are flying with the swollen ankle. I think that that's probably something that'll play a factor into it. How does the treatment respond on the plane to when you get off and you're going into your game day preparation? I think this is a tough one, but I absolutely believe that Trent Williams makes this game much easier for the 49ers. I still think Jacksonville's obviously a tough opponent, but he allows you to do a lot more. And his replacement hasn't been bad. Jalen Moore has been solid, but Trent Williams is
That's what
Trent Williams.
I was going to ask you about that because I think it's the NFC Championship game where Trent Williams did play through injury, and then in hindsight, he came back and talked about. He said that he thought that was a little bit selfish, and that Jalen Moore actually would have probably been better than Trent Williams on half an ankle. I tend to think Trent Williams on half an ankle is better than Jalen Moore, but I don't know. I guess it'll be up to them if they want to push that or not. I like that you brought up the plane. I think that the swelling in the air and plus it's not a short plane ride, it's all the way across the country, so that'll be really interesting. One guy who is coming back though is Debo. I think that that'll be huge for the offense. Unfortunately, Kyle Shanahan, in my opinion, wasn't really able to scheme a super creative system without him, but I think hopefully the presence of him will open Christian McCaffrey up, allow Brock Purdy for some more dump offs, whether that is to Debo himself or to Christian McCaffrey. um, Maybe take some attention away from Ayuk, who I think will also need to have a really big game for the offense to put up enough points to contend with Jacksonville. So, aside from Debo being back, the other I feel like more interesting or major injury update that actually came out yesterday, but is still on the injury report today is Javon Hargrave has a knee issue.
Yeah.
That scares me. The 49ers have a terrible history of trading for players and then them having knee issues and not working out. Were you surprised by this knee issue? It didn't seem to come about in a game. Uh, Kyle Shanahan hasn't really been asked about it. I feel like it's flown under the radar that there's just a sudden knee injury in this guy that the 49ers paid a lot of money,
Yeah, I
who
think
hasn't been performing very well either.
it's definitely something. I think Shanahan, I believe he said, I forget if it was, I think it was today. He said his knee acted up in practice yesterday, hence the limited yesterday and limited today. So it's a recent injury. It was one that occurred in practice this week, and so he's questionable. I guess because Kyle didn't say he's real questionable. Maybe that's a better sign. But no, I think I mean all injuries are important to watch, and I think that this one is another one of them. Probably would expect Javon Hargrave to play on Sunday, but another one to monitor. And I mean, again, you don't want these injuries to continue to pile up. You already have Aaron Banks out. You had a number of players who had a limited practice or a full practice or a limited practice or didn't practice on a day this week. So you definitely have certain things that you gotta keep an eye out for. So definitely will be intrigued to see how the 49ers treat their injuries. Right now, we know two players are out, Aaron Banks with the turf toe, Drake Jackson with the knee injury. And so, yeah, definitely curious to see how the Javon Hargrave injury goes about on Sunday.
To be fair, I feel like Drake Jackson wasn't going to play even if he wasn't injured. That poor guy has fallen far down the depth charts, which kind of sucks because it does seem like he did um, everything in his power this offseason. Like all the media around him was pretty positive that he was in the training room every day, getting stronger, working closely with his coach. So a little bit disappointing to see what's happening to him, but the 49ers don't seem to be letting that get them behind with all the moves that they've made. If who will replace him or who will step in for that? Will that just be Gregory then? That will be subbing in for Chase Young?
You
I
mean
think
Drake
Chase
Jackson?
Young will be. I think Chase Young will be like a full go.
Yeah,
Don't you?
I believe Chase Young. I mean, he was the first, he was the starter on the depth chart. So that's something I'm intrigued to see because Me personally, I believe Young can be a 3-down player for the 49ers, which means being in on base downs, which provides you more variety because you don't have to do substitutions when you're on base downs and when you're, in your other packages. And so I'm curious to see, does Young earn the start, or does I don't really care about the start as much, but does Young play on base downs a lot more, or how does it go in week one? I think he'll get acclimated as the weeks go along, but I expect Young and I expect Randy Gregory. Those are going to be the two guys who I anticipate take that role. Even if Drake Jackson, like you said, was healthy, probably wouldn't expect him to play. The moves are kind of an indictment on him and the way that his season's kind of gone. Probably not to the 49ers' expectations thus far, despite the good offseason.
Really quick, White Bear Rick said, "Who is Trent Baalke? Is he kidding?" Trent
I
Baalke
don't
is
know who he
he's
is either.
iconic.
Never heard of him.
And then Randy said, Trent, as long as Trent is 100%, not at 70%. I was kind of saying that. I wonder if Trent at 70% is still better than Jalen Moore, to be honest. But obviously, you don't want to make it worse. And I think maybe that might also be part of the consideration with Trent's injury, is because the reason it's taking so long for him to heal is because of his prior history with that ankle. So it'll be interesting to see. I think if he can push it, he'll probably try to. So I think if he doesn't play, that means it's doing pretty poorly, which seems like from Kyle Shanahan's tone what it will be like. But hopefully they'll be able to scheme around that a little bit. The Jaguars do have a pretty good defensive line, but hopefully with all the weapons back, that Kyle Shanahan will be able to come up with some creative play calling and have a little bit of a more balanced attack if they can't run as much, especially on that left side.